are live, guys. We are upgrading for episode 3 of Miscellaneous and Brown. And it's me, your host. Miscellaneous and Brown is where I give you my perspective, my miscellaneous and brown perspective on pop culture and politics. And today, I don't even want to waste time with a big introduction because I am so excited to have my next guest. And you heard her name in my last episode because Constantine Anthony was speaking so highly of her. And now today I have her on the podcast. Guys, please welcome Ysabel Jurado.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Eric. This is amazing.
Oh, you are amazing. I've been seeing you all over the internet, all the Filipino American pop culture and news outlets are covering you. If you're elected, you'd be the first FilAm to be elected to LA City Council. And I'm just happy to be able to give you an opportunity to share your story and to, share your what you're about. And yeah. Like you went to UCLA and
Yeah.
you were a single teen mom when you decided to go to UCLA. So tell me about that. Tell me what those motivations, because you had not a lot of people can start from there and end up where you're at right now. It's pretty amazing to see. And I want people to see and hear your story.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, I'm the exception and I don't think it should be, right? But that is how things are in the way we live right now. But yeah, I was pregnant at 17, then 18 years old is when I had my daughter. And I had to withdraw from four-year university. I'm Filipino, so we're hella Catholic, and yeah, so I had my daughter really, really young and it was so tough. Had to withdraw, went on food stamps, enrolled in community college. It was a really tough thing to do. In Asian culture, I didn't get married, so I stayed single, and it was really tough. People were judging me left and right, Asian, dishonoring my family.
I
Like,
mean,
that was
you
a
don't even
word.
have to qualify it as Asian. Filipino American culture is very judgmental, for sure.
Yeah, and then just like I watched a lot when I was pregnant. It was a very sad pregnancy for me because it was so shrouded in so much shame. And I would be watching
Mhm.
Mulan all the time because I was just like, the word dishonor was thrown at me so many times during that time. It was wild. But, from that, I was like, look, I need to make something of myself. And it wasn't for me anymore, right? It was for my daughter, in trying to make life work. And so she really, I was lost a little bit before her because, you're young, you still don't know who you are. And so it really forced me to grow up really fast and gave me purpose and focus. And so was really adamant of like, I need to get out of community college. I need to, go somewhere and like pick a career that even as a single mom, I would be financially solvent. And so it was like aspiring to be an attorney, but it was definitely not a solitary endeavor. I mean, even all parents, single or not, know that like you need help in
Yeah.
this economy in LA too. It's not like, you're like, oh, my daughter
LA
will
is an
walk to school.
expensive city to live in.
And it's like rare to be like, yeah, you can just walk to school, or like you only need to take one bus certain places. Like, no, it's like all that stuff. So definitely had my big community, my Filipino titas, and some of my lolas were still around, and my not so in-laws, my baby daddy's family, very, very helpful, and neighbors in my neighborhood who were just like babysitting my daughter while I had to do all the things.
Oh,
So it really is like I had to rely on the community of like being Filipino and having that extended family, even though they were hella judgmental, they still showed up,
yeah.
and I had to
I
take that
mean,
help.
well, at the end of the day, they just want to tell you that you're doing wrong and point out all the things that are wrong, but they're still going to try to help pick you up and help carry you to get you to where you need to be. So, I mean, that's the thing about community and family, especially
Hmm.
in the Kapwa, in the Filipino community.
Yeah.
It really is about enriching and helping others. And that's kind of the goal of this podcast. And that's part
Yeah.
of why I'm so happy to have you on, because you're really setting a good example to all of us. Because I said it in the last podcast with Constantine Anthony, all politics is local.
Yep.
And if you're not involved in your own community, but you complain about it, I mean, you don't really have room to complain if you're not involved. And you took it a step further and started to run for office. So what was the motivation for that? What you're a UCLA graduate, you're a tenants rights attorney, and now and you're still a single mom, so you're still raising your daughter, even with the help of the community. What made you say, okay, I'm going to run for office. Now I'm going to run for city council?
I mean, the district I'm running for is infamous because our council member was caught on tape gerrymandering districts against Black folks and, engaging in racist and homophobic language. And when those tapes came out at the last election, I was just like, I've had it. I'm tired. Like, we can't have this kind of like racist, bigotry and leadership in this city that's like supposed to be very progressive, right? And so, especially emerging from the pandemic, when I was an eviction defense attorney and just watching folks fall through the cracks, I was representing small business and tenants, and some of my clients, my main focus of clients were Filipinos and APIs, and just seeing these seniors struggling to be like staying where they're at, right? And just so sad. And for me, it was like the economic realities that I had known growing up as a daughter of undocumented folks, as a teen mom on food stamps, had just worsened. I was like, how can we get out of this? And just being heartbroken by that. And also the racial reckoning that we were promised after George Floyd. And then these tapes come out. It was just like a slap in the face. And so for me, it was like, I need to serve my community. If I have the capacity and the privileges that life has afforded me to do this, then I'm going to do it. And so I put my hat in the ring, and when I do something, I do it. And so, for the love of my community, that's really why I've been running.
It's funny because I just to tell you a little bit of a quick thing of why I'm doing this. Like in 2020, FilAm's for Biden approached me about just being like a Pinoy Jon Stewart kind of thing, where I'd make fun of the opposing, the orange one. I don't really like to say his name because he gets enough, that's enough of, he gets mention. But making fun of him and kind of getting Filipinos and Filipinas, excited about voting and excited about, hopefully voting for Joe Biden and voting for progressive issues. And that's, I kind of wanted to upgrade that show this time. And now I'm giving Filipinos and Filipinas an example of here's somebody who just felt offended by your local city councilman and took it upon yourself to, I'm gonna run. So what would be your suggestion if somebody's watching this, some young Filipina in Chicago is watching this, or a Filipina in New York or in Pennsylvania or in Virginia or wherever, San Diego, and they, I want to run for office. What would be the first steps that you would take, even if you're young and you're still too young to run for office? But what would be the first steps that you would take to go on to the path that you've taken?
Oh, I'm like the path that I've taken. I only take the hard path.
You and me both, girl. You and me both.
It's like, oh, you wanna go to law school as a teen mom? They don't really graduate, and it's like, oh, you want to run in city council against 3 career politicians? It's like, oh yeah, girl, you just want to do hard things. But we do hard things because we have to, not because it comes from a real place. I think for me, it's like, it's an honor, borrowing Sandra. It's an honor to be Filipino, and like all of Filipino culture with its complexities, like all the good things, all the bad things, that is so deeply rooted into my approach to politics. And so I would like, number one, before you even think about all the other stuff, is like embracing that complex identity. Like the way that I approach the world and the politics and the kind of what I want to infuse in the politics is that collectiveness and identity and contribution. like that is like so rooted in my approach to politics. That's a kind of against the American view of politics. And so embracing that part of your identity and realizing like it comes with the conflicts, but you like work through that. And so I really, like, to your point, like my family is where I learned how to organize and learned how to have these like work through this like team sport, which is life and politics at large, right? And so I think that's number one, embracing your identity. The second thing, if you want to get started, if you're even like remotely interested, joining a local campaign, like just as a volunteer or canvassing, because then you get to see a little bit of like what, like how the sausage is made, and like campaigning and interning at like a elected office. Those are two different skill sets, but that's still part of the politics of it. And third, I don't know, second and third are interchangeable, but third is getting involved in your community in some way somehow. And it doesn't have to be the government, because usually community groups and nonprofits, like I've been outside of politics for almost a decade, didn't think I would go back to city hall at all because I was so jaded by it, but I've been on the community side responding to the laws and inequities. And you need to know, if you want to be an elected, how is the community responding to the policies, or how, and what are the real issues that they're grappling with, so that when you go in, if you want to be elected or you want to work for someone, you know where the community stands, because that's at the end of the day a relationship between the governed and the person who is governing. And so learning really what the issues are from that vantage point for me has been so important. Yeah.
So what are your main motivations in politics? What are your issues that are your what are your most important issues to you as a city? Like what are your day one issues as a LA City Council member? What would you want to bring to LA City Council that's not there now?
I mean, number one is like more interim housing and attacking our homelessness crisis, and like providing community resource hubs for our unhoused neighbors. Right now, we have very few interim housing options, but we need to provide wraparound services where unhoused neighbors can take a bath, go to sleep, have a meal without being criminalized, but they need storage for their stuff, because they can't just abandon their things so that they can sleep at night indoors. That's just like not an option for them. And the way that we have crafted our resources, it's like you have to pick, right? And the other thing is, when they do go into those shelters, like they don't see a doctor to have their physical needs met or their mental health needs, which is a longer term thing, right? Or they don't meet, and they don't also meet with a housing navigator. So having those all bunched in one place where they're getting their needs met, so that they can address their longer term needs and get housing ready when housing is available. I think that's number one, right? And the other thing is, removing police from traffic stops. There's already been a study shown in the city by Councilmember Harris Dawson that shows that like we can actually do it, and that's a way to save Black and Brown lives. Like that's a public safety issue that's also will save Black and Brown lives, right? But second, it's good for our city budget. It saves us money when civilian officers are going to do that. So when it makes fiscal sense and public safety sense, I think we should be doing that. So like those are the things that I'm like, let's go. We can do this. Yeah.
And those are tangible reforms that people will feel in your community. Those are the things that's kind of the stress of this podcast. Because before we tried to stress on the national issues and the issues that are almost, they feel abstract, almost you don't even feel them. But here you're talking about the homeless person that's on your block, or in the case there's so many things facing us as Los Angelinos, and then when you couple the fact that you would be the first Filipina to ever serve on LA City Council, considering Los Angeles is probably the largest population of Filipinos outside of the Philippines. That's pretty crazy to think about that.
It is crazy. It's all crazy, I mean, Eric. It's crazy.
It really is, because, representation, I mean, for me as an actor, representation truly matters. Whenever I see another Filipino or Filipina doing good things in entertainment, I'm always like, oh, it's possible. We can do it. We can see it. Like whenever I look at Joe Coy selling out stadiums, I'm like, oh my gosh, one day, or even not one day. Maybe I could just get a small piece of that. I don't have to sell out
Yeah,
stadium.
yeah,
Just just sell out the show in Chicago I got next weekend. I'm good.
yeah.
No, but I gotta say it's admirable to hear. Now I want to ask you, because Los Angeles is such a huge place. Los Angeles
Mhm,
County is
mhm.
what, 10 million people,
Yeah.
and you would be representing what portion of Los Angeles? Like CD14 is what area of Los Angeles, so the people who are living in that area can think about them and be like, oh, I need to vote for Ysabel all the time, kind of thing. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So where
Yes,
is
yes, yes.
the specific region where you're running?
Well, it's Northeast LA, so it's Eagle Rock, Highland Park, but north of York, El Sereno, including Rose Hills, what is it, Boyle Heights, and downtown LA, which includes like Arts District, Skid Row, Little Tokyo, Central City, South Park, everything downtown except LA Live. And so that's the whole district. It's about a 250,000 people. Yeah, it's very large.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. And but that's amazing. I Okay, so I live in Burbank, and
yeah.
I discussed with Constantine Anthony the problems and issues I have living here in Burbank. But I want to ask you how it affects you living, because it's close. We're in close proximity to each other, and as far as your I can get to where your district in 10 minutes driving.
Hmm.
And Burbank is the largest, second per capita in America in gun stores.
Wow.
And how does that affect you guys? Like, what is because you guys, I'm sure you're in downtown LA, so the
Hmm.
gun regulations and everything is different. It's Los Angeles, but being so in close proximity to a place like Burbank, how does that affect you and the city council in Los Angeles?
I mean, I love Constantine. Constantine's endorsed us. I've seen him so many times at the picket line. We love the mayor of Burbank. I mean, for me, I love Burbank too. Y'all have an IKEA. That's why we family. That's why our family goes over there. And it's just like Burbank, Eagle Rock, Glendale, Highland Park, Pasadena. That has always been like that's like the trifecta of like where we would go as a child, as a Filipino. Like those are the places we go to hang
Those are
out,
the spots.
like like they have meals, and so it's like this whole area of like a regional approach. And so been wanting to work together because like there may be more gun stores per capita, and that's where the people in Highland Park are probably going, right? To go get their guns because we don't have a lot of those here. And so it's like we need folks that are of the same mindset in these positions so we can actually have a regional approach to public safety, right? Because then we can actually make sure we're coordinated. Because right now, like, I understand when folks are like, I don't know who I'm voting for. There's the county, there's the city, and then there's the assembly, and then there's like all these things, and they like are and the federal level, and people are like, I don't know which is which. There's Metro, isn't that a part of the government? And it's like so confusing, right? But having folks that are aligned in all of these positions that are overlapping one area would help to have a more coordinated approach instead of this like piecemeal approach to any topic, right? I mean, that's why folks in Texas and Florida want to ship people like immigrants to LA because they're like, well, LA is a sanctuary city, so we can just dump people there. And it's like, when we don't have a coordinated approach, people just dump the problem somewhere else, and it's not going to help us move forward and really make solutions.
Well, it's very interesting that you talk about the questions that people ask you when they want to vote for you, because it
Hmm.
is confusing.
Yeah.
Even as someone, I mean, I studied political science in college. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I realized I just really wanted to be on LA law. That's but in as far as like I had civics classes and I had to take the constitutional test in school, but these kids coming up today and these younger kids that are now coming of voting age, they didn't have those civics classes and they didn't have those constitution classes. So break it down for people. Like, you're running for city council, and
Hmm.
and so what does that entail? What are the responsibilities of a person running for city council?
Yeah, I mean, usually when you think of like when people ask questions, it's always a city council thing. So city council deals with all the things that you probably complain about in your city. It has to do with your streets, the lighting, the trash pickup, how many police are around, the response time of fire departments. Are the parks clean? Do we have enough dog parks? What's happening at the shelters? Are they killing more animals? Are they saving them? What's going on there? It has to do with the water and power, because our city has a water and power system. They control the airport. It's like all these things that people will complain about the most, right? And those are the services. Most of the things are services that people receive from their council member, and it usually has to do with the streets, the lighting, the trash. Like that's what, as council member, I have to do for all those neighborhoods we listed, right? But then on the other hand, we also create citywide policy with amongst 15 council members that have to do with housing, have to do with giving aid to small businesses. What are we going to do in emergency crisis? Like, all those things are what we have to decide amongst 15 other people citywide. And then we have the third thing, which is not necessarily policy, but it's like the bully pulpit, right? Because you're an elected official, you have this, it's like a celebrity, like you have a platform that you can uplift
Yeah.
issues. And here in LA, we're considered the progressive bellwether of city like ordinances in the city, that they copy ours and then do it in other cities to model it after ours. So it's a really powerful tool that maybe necessarily isn't law, but it's super important.
Right on. I have to say, I'm learning so much because um, part of it is, you concentrate so much every 4 years on the
Mhm.
election because everybody's paying attention to it. The news is talking about it and all these things. But local politics, people like you, people who've decided to, in a lot of ways, sacrifice their own lives and their own
Oh,
careers and directions to run for city office and to represent us and to give us a voice in these things, so that when the garbage isn't picked up, or when there's a pothole in the street, or all these issues that seem very minuscule until you actually have to face them personally, and you want to
yeah.
complain to somebody and you want to get it fixed. It really is important. And that's again why I'm so excited and happy to have you on, because I'm really hoping that, because you already, the primary happened last Tuesday. We're
Hmm.
kind of dating this podcast, so it's Super Tuesday just happened, and now
Yeah.
you're so give us the results. Or are you still waiting? Because I know California takes a long time, and it's crazy. So
Yeah.
are you waiting on what's going to happen, or what's going on with the results of the election on Tuesday?
Yeah. So March 5th was 2 days ago. And so we're waiting
Oh
on
yeah, yeah,
results.
not yesterday.
The election will be certified March 29th. And so
Okay.
as of right now, we're still counting all of the ballots that were mailed in, because in California, everybody receives a mail in ballot, right?
Hmm.
And so because of that, you know, look, people, Filipino time, colored people time applies to voting. Even if you received your ballot February 5th, and you filled it out, y'all ain't gonna turn it in until March 5th
I
at
put
8.
mine in on Friday, girl. I know,
I,
I did too.
I did it that morning. It was crazy. I did it at 7. I was like, I'm still researching. I haven't decided. But anyways, so all of us that are, our folks that are procrastinators, or just like feel the urgency and the thrill to like be included that day, because it does have its own vibe and people get the day off to do it. So that kind of makes sense to me. We still have those to be counted. So every day around 4 or 5 p.m., check the recorder's office to see it. And so we are in third place, but we
Okay.
are about 290 votes away from being in second place. So it's just
Awesome.
like every day I'm trying not to refresh the page, but we're just so
It's
close.
tough to not look at those numbers, though. I can only imagine.
I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to relax, but even with that, right? Even on election night, I was just so proud of what we were able to accomplish. Like, we did not take a cent. We didn't take a cent from big corporations, big oil, big pharma, the prison industrial complex. and we are 290 votes away from being in second place when other people had like over $1 million spent.
You
And I was
raised
like,
all
that's
you raised over $150,000 with no PAC money for your campaign. I
yeah,
read that on your website.
yeah, we raised like we're at 400,000 something right now. And it's just like, but the city has a matching funds program which gave us like almost 200,000. So, but still, like we're able to do what we did with such little money, or in comparison, and that's because we did the work of knocking on every door and having the human conversations of listening to people, right? We didn't just like, we sent one mail piece and it was handwritten postcards. You know how long that took? It was a lot of time. But, and we
You
knocked on,
probably got cramps in your hand after all those handwritten postcards. My goodness.
I know, and we knocked on 85,000 doors, right? Like this campaign was about people power. Like the EDSA revolution just passed. That has always been my inspiration for what we could do. And
I was
regardless
about to
of,
say people power because that was the same with me and in our house. It was the same. We had the book for the coffee table. It just said people power on the front because that was it. That when you understand the power of the grassroots of the Kapwa, you understand that how the people can lift you up and then you can be their voice. It's really amazing. And
yeah.
it was beautiful to watch all your Instagram videos and all the different while you were campaigning because okay, so I wore this shirt for you.
What does it say? Oh my God, I love it.
It's a Shirley Chisholm T-shirt from back in the day, and it because she was the first Black woman to run for president, and in honor of you being the first Pinay to run for president, or not run for president, but I'm jumping ahead. No, but in honor of you, running to be the first FilAm for LA City Council, it really is. I'm honored to have you on my podcast, and I'm honored for you to share your story. I guess there's only a few other questions that I would have, and we can wrap it up.
Okay.
But okay, so I host two different podcasts. I host one podcast, this podcast that you're on, Miscellaneous and Brown, where I talk about pop culture and politics and current events. And then I have another podcast with Mitch Narito called the Canacuyas, where we talk about and we advocate for medicinal marijuana and medicinal marijuana rights, and just using marijuana as a creative outlet and also as medicine, as a medicine. And I wanted to ask you, as a LA City Council member, what are the issues that you get in as far as that issue, as far as in medicinal marijuana, and how it's being taxed in the city, and how it's harder and less accessible for patients and people who can't afford it and can't go to the dispensary. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, look, we've been hearing a lot about the placement of the dispensaries, but also the other issue, really the bigger issue, I feel like, is a social equity issue. Like folks are like, where is it coming back to our communities? Like that's the thing that people are like more talking about more, in the neighborhoods of like, where is that social equity piece? Like, okay, we've accepted it as a use, but like, where's the money at? Where's the investments that you're getting back into our communities? And so I think that's the big piece that people are thinking about. Yeah.
And I love that you say that, because it really is a matter of, because we bring up on the podcast, Roger Aislinger back in 1937 used Filipinos specifically. They said Negroes, Latinos, Negroes, Hispanics, and Filipinos and entertainers use this marijuana to lure white women away from their husbands. And we've been demonized and used as since the Manongs were the Manongs and the migrant workers of the 1930s and 40s were demonized for using this drug and for using it, and it's amazing when you think about Filipinos as our history.
Yeah.
We're very seldom mentioned in history, but in that case we were specifically mentioned, which is part of the reason why we bring it's such an important issue for me, because so many people, like you say, are monetizing now that it is accepted and medicinal.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the community that you pushed down and demonized beforehand, and
Mm-hmm.
the Latinos and the Negroes and the Filipinos that you blamed for it? Now what happens to us now? And
Yeah.
I agree with you. Where is the social equity?
Yeah.
Because I live in a place, Burbank, where they don't even allow the stores, but
Mm-hmm.
they have the largest number of gun stores per capita besides Florida.
Yeah.
So the logic is we need more people like you in city council that are logical about these things and
I mean,
practical.
yeah.
Because
Yeah. Yeah. Keep going.
no, you go ahead. Go ahead. You're going to say something. I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I just like, look, California's history, racial history against Filipinos is something that you have to dig and find in your UCLA Asian or an Asian American Studies class. But one of the first miscegenation laws in this state specifically against Filipinos, right? And I like have all my Filipino history books on the bottom of my chair, but like we have been explicitly racialized, demonized in the same narratively as Black folks in this state in particular, right? And policed at this, policed even early on, especially in those farm worker days. And so that's why for me, it's like
The
that
Watts
struggle,
riots.
right? Like this stuff is to me like that so informs my views on housing and public safety and like all of these things, and even like what you're saying, like minority groups is access to capital as small businesses, right? That's the root of what you're saying. And it's like, oh, we used to have this business but it was illegal, and now that it's legalized we're being barred from access to the same resources to do the business we were already doing. And it's like, resource
Well,
hoarding.
and
Yeah.
you bring up the anti-miscegenation laws. Like, if those were still around, my marriage to my wife would be
Hmm.
illegal and my kids would be a crime. People
Yeah.
don't realize that this is just we're only 50 years removed, and it's a
Yeah.
trip because I just shared this story because I was in Romance of Magna Rubio with
Mm-hmm.
John Briones back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and this tells the story of the Manongs.
Yeah.
And a local state assembly member, Luis Alfaro, came to one of the last performances and presented an official state apology from the
Wow.
state of California for the anti-miscegenation laws
Hmm.
on stage, and like all of us were crying and so
Oh my
happy.
gosh.
And
Yeah.
I said that moment, that I would never need an Oscar. I would never need any kind of an award to acknowledge my acting, because who could ever have imagined
Hmm.
this type of thing, this type of acknowledgement of my art, in that it elicited an apology from the fifth
Government.
largest economy in the world. It was amazing. and
Wow.
and and that's the power of people who get involved, and that's the power of people of storytelling, and that's
Hmm.
why I wanted to have you on, because you sharing your story, you sharing your inspirations, and of course us discussing Filipino American history,
Yeah.
and how it affects us even to this day is amazing. And again, Ysabel, thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and let my podcast listeners know where they can find you, where they can get involved if they want to volunteer for your campaign, if
Yeah.
they want to,
Yeah.
let them
Tap
know.
in. Yeah. Tap in. Oh my gosh, Eric, I love that we did a deep dive on Filipino history. You don't always get to do that with everyone. And I just love it because, you know, we're not in college, but know your history, self. And when you know yourself, then you can have like you'll never betray your values, even if you go into hostile environments that want you to, like entertainment, like politics, which those systems are not made for you, and you're demanding that you make your room for yourself, and you're doing that and I'm doing it, and we're reclaiming our time and reclaiming this space to make it for us. And so happy to be here and talk about it. So my website is ysabeljurado.la. There's a little newsletter situation there that you can sign up. On social media, we're Ysabel Jurado LA, on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and maybe on Threads, but never posted anything because it's a lot to keep up with all these things.
There's too many. There's too many social networks, but I'm glad you're on all of them, and follow this lady on all of them if you're listening. Again, and also share this podcast with another person that you might, be inspired by. And if you are so compelled, please do leave a review on YouTube, leave comments, or I'm just going to be here, and I'm going to keep trying to bring you people that will inspire you to get involved in your community and make it a better place to live for everyone. So I've been Erick Esteban, and this is Ysabel Jurado running for LA City Council. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.
You got one, here we go. You can see the size is colossal. Look at the way she make the thing go. Make it gyrate, make it shake like tectonic plates. That's what you call an earthquake. Ay. Make it gyrate, make it shake like tectonic plates. That's what you call an earthquake. Ay. It's summertime, starting up a heat wave, and now all weekend, hardly slept in 3 days. Whoever's driving the car is the DJ. When it's Q, you better pump that bass. The dominance is obvious, I guillotine, heads roll everywhere I go, I rep Philippines. Found my way, turn amaze to amazing. Infinite flows discovered in an ancient spaceship. I see things before they happen, visionary. Bury me inside a studio at the cemetery. My modus operandi not monetary. Noah Lazarus, the holy one out the monastery. So let me see your cue, plus the Y, that's the crew. I'm a giant, how I grew, still connected to my roots. Rhymes, I kick it like Bruce, got me feeling like Zeus. Standing tall like Manute, to reach this level need a boost. I don't think you're born any problems, but you got one, here we go. You can see the size is colossal. Look at the way she make the thing go. Make it gyrate, make it shake like tectonic plates. That's what you call an earthquake. Ay. Make it gyrate, make it shake like tectonic plates. That's what you call an earthquake. Ay. Smoother than Brazilian wax, that's interact. My life a cinematic reflection in the mirror max. With the pros I'm proliferating. She said my syntax sounds so scintillating. Flavormatics on the beat savory. Being scared, still doing it, that's bravery. Hunger turn us into savages. Ain't nobody give us nothing, had to do it alone, without a loan. Like Nora from Queens, Aquafina had the shell toe. Adidas used to hang with the drug dealers. Been doing this since cassette tapes in my Walkman, writing rhymes on the subway. Traditions I carry on, hip hop scholar, mastered in the street. Science, raw diamonds, how I find them with the stars.